Good day, dear listeners. My name is Steve Preda, the founder of the Summit OS Group and the creator of the Summit OS Business Operating System. And today, my guest is Rich Kahn, the CEO and co-founder of Anura, an ad fraud solution that monitors traffic to identify real users versus bots, malware, and human fraud. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today.
Well, it's super interesting business you have and the entrepreneurial journey. So let's start with my favorite question. What is your personal why and how are you manifesting it in Anura?
My personal why has always been to help people. Fraud is a huge problem, and it's no longer a question of if you have fraud, it's a question of how much fraud you have. And I'm watching people spend millions and millions of dollars on digital marketing and getting it siphoned out by fraudsters with bogus traffic. So the why is and all the businesses that I did, I want to help people grow their business. I want to help people grow their staff. I want to help people grow just in general. And in this case, with Anura, I'm able to help them identify wasted spend, eliminate that so they can grow their marketing campaigns and grow their company, which if they grow their company, then they have to grow their staff. And, it's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. And until we talked, I was not aware that fraud is rampant, especially in ad spend. Didn't occur to me. And I kind of wonder why this is happening. But tell me how you found this problem and why do you want to solve this and how did you get to this point to
Sure.
launch a company about it?
Well, in 2003, my wife and I launched a digital marketing firm. Think of Google, but really small. So it's text-based ads. You can target by keyword, bid price, geography, audience. Like it had all these targeting criteria. And so we launched it in 2003. By 2004, we had a nice stable list of clients, but we started getting some complaints about the traffic quality. Something wasn't right. And I'm a developer. So I started looking at the code and looking at all the analytics and the data, realized that it was bad traffic. It was fraudulent traffic. So I figured, you know what? I don't want to solve fraud. I want to go out, buy a fraud solution, bolt it onto my platform, and just continue doing my business. Kind of like buying McAfee for your laptop. You just buy it and let it scan and do its thing. But in 2004, there didn't exist any fraud solutions. In fact, the first commercially available fraud solution didn't start selling until 2008 or 9. So I was a developer. I said, we're going to lose our business if I don't do something. So I figured I'd build it myself. And we did. I wrote the software. It worked great. Had to continue evolving it as fraud evolved. And it got to the point where we started having clients ask, if not beg, to use our software outside of our network. And that's when we kind of got the idea, this might be a good tool to sell by itself as opposed to baked into our platform. And that's where we launched. And it was 2017. We ended up launching Anura as a standalone solution.
Wow. I mean, it's definitely, if this is a big problem, it's going to affect everyone who advertises. So it could be billions of or hundreds of millions of people. How can someone make money with fraudulent traffic? How does it help them to make money?
Well, what happens is internet, advertising fraud is not illegal. Like there's no law that says you can't do it. So if you do find somebody that's doing it, it's really difficult to prosecute them in the US, but a lot of it happens overseas. So it's even worse. There's a lot of countries that allow all kinds of stuff. So what we focus on is their job is to try to make money. And what I read an article one time, another company that was doing stats on fraud detection, they said the average fraudster, and this is why they do it, makes $5 million a year.
But how?
There's a lot of different ways. It depends if they're buying from Google, Facebook, DSPs, affiliate marketing. But I'll give you a simple example. One example, which is affiliate marketing. A lot of companies use affiliate marketing. I think it's a $20 or $30 billion industry at this point. It's a big market. So what happens is right now, you or I can go to Amazon and sign up for their affiliate program. And every time we send them a new client, they'll give us 5% of what they spend. So I'm getting paid to do the spend, right? So what if I sent fake users there, right? I'm not going to get paid for anything because they're not spending money. But what if I'm the fraudster? I use stolen credit cards to make those purchases. So if the purchase gets made and shipped, I get 5%. Affiliates usually get paid net 7. So I get paid net 7. Somewhere across that month, maybe the next month, the person whose credit card they stole says, hey, wait a second, I recognize charges that don't belong to me. And then the investigation starts and takes months before it comes back to Amazon and say, oh, you shipped out a product to a fraudulent credit card. You're not getting paid for this. We're taking the money back. And then they sent out the product. So they're out the hard loss of the product. They've already paid out the affiliate. The affiliate's gotten paid. And the affiliate can continue to do that for weeks, knowing that it's going to take months for them to get caught. Once they get caught, they just sign up another account. And what they're doing is they're making those affiliate margins. So if they spend $100, they make five. If they create dozens and dozens of accounts, you can quickly see how they can make a lot of money in a short period of time. That's just one example.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. So, okay, that's really cool. So you basically help people not have the fake traffic. So whatever traffic they have, it's real. So they pay real prices for real value. That's got to be a significant improvement in advertising efficiency. What is the kind of improvement that you see on average happening for people?
On average, it's 25% improvement. So 25% of the marketing dollars that they're spending is fraudulent. Now, if they buy from like Google and Facebook, it's probably around 10%. They're on the lower side. If you buy from like a programmatic space like the trade desk and stuff like that, it's upwards of 50%. And then everything else falls in between. All the digital type of marketing, if you're doing influencer advertising, if you're doing affiliate advertising, each one has different levels of fraud that we've found. But on the high side is programmatic. On the low side is probably search and social.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this seems like a big part of optimizing an ad and making it perform better. So what I'd like you to share with us, and we talked about this in the pre-call, that you have a framework for generally optimizing digital ads. So what would that look like? And one element is fraud, but what are the other elements and how do you go about optimizing your advertising?
Sure. Like the heaviest hitter, in my opinion, is fraud. So you start with fraud, you look at where fraud is and you minimize that, right? The next thing you want to focus on is conversion value. Every campaign has some level of conversion. It could be as simple as a click. It could be as simple as watching a video. It could be purchasing a product. It could be generating a lead for, let's say, hey, save money on my car insurance, and you fill out a lead. So what you want to do is look at where that conversion takes place. First off, you want to analyze the conversions because not all conversions are real conversions. You'll get conversions like credit cards, fake credit cards being used, or fake information being used in fill-in forms. And that's where the fraud comes in. Once you eliminate that, now you can rely on the data that you see in your conversion value. And you start optimizing your campaigns around that conversion value. So as long as like, hey, this source is generating me a 20% conversion, this source is generating me 10%. Well, guess what? I want to stop spending on the 10%, spend more on the 20%. Just optimizing for the conversion value. And that's what's going to get your campaign to perform at its highest level.
So what are ways to optimize conversion beyond the fraud piece?
Yeah, so once fraud's out of the game, we've eliminated fraud. It's really focusing on the data. What source you buy the traffic from, what sources they get the traffic from, because sometimes you might buy a source of traffic like Google, and it may not come from Google. It may come from one of its syndicated partners like a CNN or a weather.com or a Bloomberg, somewhere where you're not familiar with, but they're getting traffic. That's their partner network. They're getting traffic from there. So you want to identify the sources. It could be by keyword, right? You can take a look and break it down by keyword if you're looking at Google. And maybe you have certain keywords that have a much higher performance because it's a better audience to target. And then you're going to have some that are much lower. And then you got to decide what the cutoff is. So if you say, hey, anything less than 10% conversion, I'm going to get rid of. And anything greater than 10%, I'm going to buy more of. So that's kind of where you focus on your conversion value. And ultimately, it's to try to maximize your conversion while still spending your budget. Because let's say if you got a source that's converting at 80%, well, those are going to be far and few between. And they're going to be expensive, and the volume of traffic is going to be light, and it's not going to be enough because if you got one conversion a month, that's probably not enough to survive your company on. So you got to get somewhere in between where you get the volume and you get the conversion value that you're looking for to give you the best possible campaign.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you calculate your ROI on each types of conversion, and you get to the point where you still get a positive ROI. Is there a rule of thumb? What is the kind of ROI do you need in order to generally be worth taking the risk of doing the advertising and putting the effort in?
Yeah, it's very, very different from client to client. It's one thing, it's got to be specific to a client. And I'll give you an example. I used to work with a company called Tiger Direct. They were a huge reseller of electronics, computers, computer components, and stuff like that. And they would spend $110 to generate a $20 sale. So everybody knows that's losing money, right? You're losing $80 every sale you generate, or whatever the number is. If they're spending $100 to generate a sale just to get a $20 sale, why would they do that? Well, they know once they get a client in the door, they market. They send them weekly. They used to send weekly magazines of all the new stuff that's out in the market, the new pricing index, constant email bombardments. They would call you to say, hey, we got a special. I saw you bought recordable CDs. We have a special on recordable CDs if you're looking for it. They would market like crazy to their client base, and they would average over $300 per client.
So that's
So
the
their
lifetime value.
right, their lifetime value was much greater
Mhm.
than their cost for acquisition. And they were comfortable and in a position to spend that money to acquire the client, knowing that they would make the money over time. Most companies don't operate that. Most companies operate like, hey, Geico, they pay $15 or $20 to get somebody to fill out a form to say they want to save money on car insurance. And they may close 15% of those leads into actual deals. And when they do the math, they're making money every single lead that they get in, the ones that convert, right? And the ones that they're losing, they're making enough money on the wins that the losses are outnumbered and they're making money. So again, every company, every product, I've seen the same industries. Like I'm on car insurance, let's stick with car insurance. I've seen 4 or 5 companies where I'm looking at their conversion rates. Conversion rates are different, their ROIs are different, their spend is different, everything's different. It's just targeting different audiences.
So if I had unlimited funding, let's say, and I want to ramp up as fast as possible, but I wanted to make it in a smart way, is there like a rule of thumb that your lifetime value, the profit that you make on a customer, has to be 3x the amount we spend on advertising? And the lifetime value measured by the profit, not the top line, but the bottom line.
Yeah, I haven't seen like a rule of thumb for, to give clients like, obviously your lifetime value of the client needs to be more than the cost of the client to bring the client in. And if you want to be profitable, not every company starts out profitable. Like look at Uber. They were $1 billion company before they went profitable. They were able to raise enough money to keep everything going because all they cared about was client acquisition.
Yeah.
Let me get as many clients and many drivers in the door, as many drivers and riders in the door as they can possibly get so they can own the market. They had a great idea. Lyft was right behind them. They didn't care. They were able to raise enough capital to just keep spending like crazy, knowing that in the long game, that once they owned the market in all the different markets they were targeting, they were going to be profitable. So they were spending like crazy.
So doesn't that mean that there are some actors in the advertising market that inflate prices because maybe they are venture funded and 1 out of 100 company is going to make it unicorn, but or the other 99 they're going to be spending money on advertising and they're going to drive up the prices. So if someone comes in and they are bootstrapping, they're going to be hard pressed to actually make a return on their Facebook ads because there's so much demand chasing results without.
Well, if there's enough demand, then the bootstrapper can make it work. I've been a bootstrapper my whole life.
Mhm.
So if you're in a market where there's enough demand,
Mhm.
it'll work. But if you're in a situation where let's say today you decide to come up with a rideshare app, you're going to be hard pressed to win riders and drivers to a new bootstrap company. Personally, I don't think Uber would be where it is today if it was bootstrapped. A business model like that required to grow fast, and they needed the capital to do it. So, there's certain industries that bootstrappers just aren't going to be able to touch because you've got a company like Uber who is losing money acquiring all these new clients, knowing that down the road they would own the network and they would be able to be profitable. But, that's a big gamble.
Yeah, but it's also all the other companies that get funding, but they never actually make it. And the venture capitalists, they are spreading their risk because they invest in 10 companies and one blows up is enough.
Yeah.
So that means that there's a lot of fake demand, basically. Maybe.
Well, I'm talking about the demand from the client, not the demand from the company. Like the company has got the product, right? And they're trying to they're trying to generate demand for their product. So when I say demand, I mean the demand from the customer. Like
I
if
mean
there's
demand for advertising.
oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So clicks,
Yeah.
So
So
for
there's a limit number of people that are looking for that term. You've got a lot of people spending money. It's going to make it difficult to get it unless you're spending a lot per click.
yeah. So that means that maybe pay-per-click advertising is not for the faint of heart. It's
I wouldn't say that.
yeah.
It's not for everybody when you're talking about every industry, right? Certain industries, like I'll give you an example. Let's say you were a roofer. Pay-per-click's going to work great for you because there's only so many roofers in a given area. There's a high demand for roofing. You can get away with spending a couple dollars a click where it's not going to break the bank and you get that phone ringing. My son, for example, owns a power washing and holiday lighting company, and he does Facebook and Google ads. He's a small company, bootstrapped, and generates plenty of demand because of that situation. But again, if he decided he wanted to start a new competitor to Uber, he'd be lost. So it really depends on the industry. Insurance. Let's say you want to start up your own Rich Kahn's insurance company. Well, I'm going to be competing against Allstate, Progressive, Geico, all these companies that are spending heavy on that sector. The only way I'm going to get action is to spend more per click than they do. And if I'm spending more per click and I don't have the scale like they do, I'm going to lose money.
Yeah. Super interesting. So let's circle back to your framework. So we talked about fraud minimization as a way to optimize ads. We talked about conversion. What's the third leg of the stool?
For me, it's content.
Mhm.
So let's say you got fraud out of the game, you optimize by campaign, and your ad's showing up number one every single time, but the copy doesn't draw, or you don't refresh the copy often enough. Then it gets stale and people see it and like, let me try somebody new. So they're always looking for that newer content, the way to hook the client. So you really got to optimize, campaign copy. So like, again, working with Google, that's one of the bigger ones out there. You have the ability to put multiple ads, multiple creatives. Their system will automatically, take titles and just rotate them for you so they get unique. And then they'll push more traffic to the ones that are getting better conversion rate or better click-through rate. So it's constantly staying on top of your copy. Just like you watch TV at all, and you'll see the same companies advertising over and over again, but it's always a different commercial because they're trying to hook you. If they played the same commercial for the last 20 years, you kind of just tune it off.
Tune it out, yeah.
Yes, but when you see something new, it's like, oh, let me watch that one. Like, it's kind of cool. Like, because the commercials have to have good copy. If it's boring, stale copy, nobody's going to pay attention.
And if it's entertaining, then it's even better, right?
Exactly. If it becomes memorable and it's like, oh my God, you got to see this commercial I just saw. It was amazing. That's those kind of commercials you try to build, but very difficult to build.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. The creative element is very important. So that to catch the attention, to keep the attention, it has to be creative, curiosity inducing, and potentially entertaining. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So when did you decide to go all in on Anura?
Yeah, we launched it April 1st of 2017. And we spent that first year trying to figure out who we are, right, as a business, because I never sold SaaS before. I was trying to figure out, do I have a pitch deck? How do I talk to people? What works best? How do I get the person to, say that they're interested? They want to get on the phone. Like, there was so many things that we were struggling with that first year. I don't know if we signed up more than 1 or 2 clients that first year. By the second year, we signed up a bunch of clients, because we started to figure out what was working, who we're talking to, the right, right trade shows to go to, the right Google ad campaigns to put up, and as we started getting that, we started getting our traction and we started growing the client base. So I guess we would say 2017 we launched, but really 2018 we went all in, because then we got our first couple clients. They jumped on the software, fell in love with it, gave us case studies, reviews for us. And they were just like, I can't believe how you changed my business. Like, this is amazing. Like, once we got into the hands of a client and we had 1 or 2 clients that really embraced it, that's when we felt, okay, we're onto something special. We're all in. That was about 2018, about a year later.
Winding down your consulting business and went all in on the SaaS business?
Yeah, we left the Google competitor, the really small Google competitor, the marketing agency. We left it up for a couple of years because we had some clients that were still buying and using it. And then as the client's attrition naturally off the system, that's when we got to a point that, okay, time to shut it down. But that was also around 2018, 19. We started basically with 2018. We pulled all the resources from it and just said, let's just keep it up and run it for the clients that are there. They've been with us for years. Let's just keep it, stable. So we weren't going to trade shows. We weren't advertising it. Support was handled by 2 of us. The client support, actually, the whole company was run by 2 of us, 3 of us. And we let it up run for a couple of years until the last client jumped off, and then we shut it down.
Yeah, actually, that's a great approach to evolve from a business that maybe has a ceiling to it, and then you found another opportunity, and you started putting more time as it was taking off, and you reallocated resources, use it as a cash cow, your legacy business, and then when the new business took off, then you basically cut bait. That's very interesting, and I've seen this happen. I've done it myself as well. So, what was the hardest decision that you ever had to make in your business?
I'm going over the last 22 years. The hardest decision I ever had to make was firing a best friend.
Oof.
And actually, it happened, unfortunately, twice. My 2 best friends, one was a partner and one was an employee. And we were working together, and it just got to the point where we had to separate ways from a business standpoint. And that hurt the relationship. We stopped talking, and it just, it was a bad breakup. And I just ran into them about a year ago, and we picked up where we left off, and we bygones be bygones. And just, it was tough back then because, you have a good friend, and it's like, oh, I want to bring my friends into the business. So I always tell new business owners when they're starting, if you're going to start the business with friends as a partner, that's different. But don't hire your friends to be employees, because if you hire them to be employees and you have to make a business decision that's not going to vote well for them, they're going to pull the friend card. And you're going to be stuck between either getting rid of a bad employee, and I say bad, but like an employee that you need to get rid of, or lose a friend.
Yeah.
And that's tough. So, like I said, friends are hard to come by, good friends, especially when you get older, kids are out of school and you have, you're not hanging out on the sidelines of the sports and having coffee with people. As you get older, it's there's less groups that you hang out in, harder to find friends. So it's not worth losing a friend over business.
Yeah, I agree. I had this experience as well, and it was super painful for both of us, and it did impact the relationship, even though both of us put up a brave face over it, but it kind of breaks the trust.
It's not fun.
Yeah. So, final question I want to ask you is, what is the most important question an entrepreneur should ask themselves, in your opinion?
Am I willing to not give up? Like I said, when I started this company, it wasn't a new concept. If it's a new concept, it's a lot easier to be like, man, I'm going to crush this. Because when we started this, there were probably about a half a dozen different fraud solutions in the marketplace back in 2017. There was a handful of them that were out. They were already getting a lot of traction. I think all of them were fully funded, all doing really well. It's not the greatest time in the world to enter the fraud detection market when you have traction like this, like entering the market, trying to be, compete with Uber. But, I looked at it and I'm like, I think based on everything I'm doing, I think we have a better product. And once we started getting that feedback from clients who use the other products and realized we had a better product, it made me more convinced that this is the direction we want to go to. We want to turn this into its own company. We want to grow it. And for me, it's that question is this something I can do and not give up on? But if it's something like you're like, if it doesn't do this, I could probably don't start. Because one of the things you'll find with most entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, that they don't give up. Persistence. They can be smart about it, but persistent.
It's also a balance. It's a belief. Maybe this is what you're talking about, that you have this conviction that this is going to work out in the end.
Yeah. So
how do you know? How do you know that you are willing to not give up? What makes you be able to make this? Is this a decision, or is this like an ongoing question that you keep asking yourself?
For me, it's I've got to run through in my head and feel that it's an unfailable business, and then I got to feel it in my heart. If I don't feel it in my head and my heart, I'm not going to do it. I've had dozens and dozens of great ideas, some that I think would be phenomenal even in today's standard, but I didn't have the resources behind that I want. I didn't really have the heart in those businesses, so I didn't start them. Because I wasn't all in. Like you talked before, it's like with this business, when we started it, I was all in with my toe. And then once I started getting feedback from clients, I jumped in, because then I knew it wasn't me saying I've got the best solution. It was my clients telling me I got a better solution. And then as I get client after client, so now, you look at 7-8 years later, I've got, new people in the office, and I started working for this new fraud company. I see they're kind of small compared to some of the other big companies out in the marketplace, and then they're on the phone with clients who are like ranting and raving about our software. They come back, they're all in, and that's really what I want every team member to feel that, to know that they're with the right company. It's not just for me, it's for the team too.
Yeah, the team. I agree. That's super important. Well, I love that. And this whole idea of the client feedback reinforcing the value and making people confident to sell it is huge.
Yeah.
All right. So if people would like to potentially to reach out to learn about your solution, they need that. They're advertising, they're spending a lot of money, and they want to save that 25% without losing any conversions, or they just want to reach out and learn more about and get to know you, where should they go and how can they reach you?
So I would start at anura.io, anura.io, or .com. We own both. And on there, we have a huge amount of resources. We publish several blogs every week. We have dozens of ebooks online. We have the world's only comprehensive guide on ad fraud. It's about an 80-page document. So plenty of ways to learn. And then once they want to talk to somebody, once they're ready and like they've done their research and they're ready to talk to us, they can fill out a form. We can reach out, or they can just pick up the phone and call us. If they want to follow me on LinkedIn, that's my social media of choice. I post videos like this on there, some wacky videos sometimes with me and my grandkids. It's generally a good channel. So it's just Rich Kahn, Kahn, on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find.
Awesome. Well, Rich, thank you for coming and sharing your framework, the digital ad optimization. So it's the content, the fraud minimization, the conversion, and this idea of the conviction when you are willing to not give up concept. That's fabulous. So those of you who are listening to this and you found that valuable, follow us on YouTube, check out our LinkedIn page, and stay tuned because every week we're going to get a wonderful contributor like Rich Kahn, the CEO of Anura. So Rich, thanks for coming. And
Thanks
thank
for
you.
having me. Appreciate it.